You're listening to Strong as Steel, Elevating Action, a special takeover episode by White Ribbon and the Canadian Football League Players Association. Together with USW, we're committed to preventing gender-based violence and building stronger, more respectful communities from the field to the shop floor. My name is Zoey James, and I am the Senior Program Manager at White Ribbon. White Ribbon is a Canadian charitable organization and the world's largest movement of men and boys working to end all forms of gender-based violence and discrimination, promote gender equity, healthy relationships, and healthy masculinities. Elevating Action represents a national partnership between the CFLPA, USW, and White Ribbon, grounded in a shared commitment to end gender-based violence and advance safe, respectful, and equitable environments in sports and all workplaces and communities. Since its launch in 2023, this collaboration has focused on equipping steelworkers and CFL players under White Ribbon's leadership with the tools and training to deliver peer-led workshops that challenge gender-based violence and promote healthier expressions of masculinity. To date, hundreds of members across the country have been engaged in these important conversations, contributing to a growing movement for change. So with me is Andrew Peirson, from the player rep from the BC Lions, and Jake Ceresna, player rep from the Edmonton Elks. Hi guys, how are you doing? How's the week been so far?
It's been great. I mean, we're having a good time. Andrew just won an award last night, so
yes, congratulations.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it was a fun night. It's been a great week. It's meeting the fans, engaging, doing a lot of things. We had the panel, which was an awesome experience with all the union reps, and yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, awesome. So we're here today to talk about the Elevating Action program and to just give people a little more insight into kind of what the training is like and what the experience has been so far. So mostly just want to chat today and kind of walk down memory lane a bit with both of you. So Andrew, you were part of the Jasper cohort, the first one training that we did, and then Jake, you were part of the second one that we did in Collingwood, both back in 2024. So yeah, just what brought you to the program? Kind of just what are your, how did you get from, just doing your regular kind of CFLPA player duties? How did this come up for you? and how did we get here today?
Yeah, I guess I'll start, it kind of started with the CFL's initiative to educate us on gender-based violence. So there's a mandatory training that we do at the beginning of training camp. And having gone through that, just the 2 hours gave enough information to me, knowing how big of an issue this was. I kind of naively thought that this was an issue somewhere else. This was, gender-based violence was happening in other communities, and I didn't really want to know that, I didn't know that it was happening here in our communities, here in Canada, here in British Columbia, and around the nation. So I wanted to do something. I became more involved with BC Lions gender-based violence programs they do there, but I also wanted to take it a step further and travel and kind of do this at more of a national scale. Was when White Ribbon walks in and gave me the platform to do it. It's been awesome. It's given me so much opportunity to meet some awesome people and hear their stories. And I've seen it grow, this program grow, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it can go.
Heck yeah. Mine was, I remember being a rep at the 23 Grey Cup and seeing the video of you guys.
Yeah,
they did a little promo video, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," and I think it's something we could bring to Edmonton. And Aaron Grimes he was a player rep in Edmonton, and he had also gone through the program, and he really recommended it to me. So that's really what got me into it. And going there, we had a great week in Collingwood. It was super cold, but
yeah, Jasper was minus 40. So we joked that we got really close that week.
No, we did. It actually it was cold and there was nothing to do. But our group, we kind of bonded and we follow each other on social media now, and I've really considered those people great friends of mine now.
Yeah.
And it was cool to go through the program with other steel workers and other people just across Canada. And yeah, it's good. I mean, gender-based violence, it's something that we have to continue to promote and recognize and make sure that us as men are doing everything we can to eliminate it from our society. So it was good. It was just a great week, and I'm glad I went.
Well said.
Yeah, it was both are really fun, and I think when I think back to the both the Jasper training and the Collingwood one, and just the connections that were made. Like, what a cool experience. And like, for you guys, did you find it surprising, like, how much you connected with the steelworkers? Like, what was that like, you know, because I know we kind of all come from very different worlds, it seems like, but then there's so much like commonality as well in those like situations.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, it was, you know, you first get there and you're like, how am I going to fit in? Like, I'm a football player or whatever. And you know, what are we going to talk about? Do we even have stuff to talk about? But no, like, they were awesome. Frankly, like, we had so many people from all over Canada. And like, I keep thinking of Amanda, who was there with us, and she was just so great and awesome. And you know, we made great connections there. And it was cool to just be there for the week with them and hear everyone's life story and where they've been, what they're doing with their lives. And it was a great week.
Yeah, I think kind of piggybacking off what you said there with like the stories, I think that was really, really interesting because we all kind of come from, in our group, there were so many people from different, you know, places and different experiences. And there was always kind of a common trend of like wanting to do something or, you know, learning how to do something and how we can kind of be better. So I think it was awesome. And you know, you talk about like they were asking questions to us about like, you know, locker rooms and finding out the little details and stuff. And then, you know, we'd ask questions about like the job sites or, you know, their workplaces. And there's a lot of common things and there's a lot of differences as well. But I think it was a cool perspective change for someone like myself that was like, hey, like, you know, any other job I've done outside since I was in like high school hasn't really been that kind of like job site. It's been more of like office kind of stuff. So seeing that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, just to piggyback off that. Yeah. Piggyback off the piggyback. It was eye-opening too to just see the issues that they were going through that you wouldn't even think that they had to deal with, especially with like gender-based violence and stuff. And some of their stories where you were like, really? I can't even believe that that's still going on or occurring. So it was just cool to connect in that way and just having that group of people together in the room, you know, collaborating on a bunch of different ideas, and we're all trying to think of ways to solve, you know, problems of the world, I think was just awesome.
Yeah. And I think the cool thing about the training is that like it was a very open environment, like no judgmental, hey, we're just going to be like, you know, humans here and just speak freely about our experiences and everything. And I remember one conversation that I really took home was like, you know, sometimes you kind of forget that we're like big burly men and like we don't deal with things that sometimes women have to go through, or like the most simplest of things. And I remember we were talking about like just like it was dark out and like women have to like strategically park their cars or come up with a game plan how to get out and all these little things. And I remember texting my fiance after we got out and I was like, hey, because she's like tall and like an athlete too. So I was like, you know, she's not like too petite. And I was like, you know, like texting her saying like, hey, like, you know, do you do these kind of things? And she goes like, oh my God, Andrew, all the time. And I never but I would never know, right? So it little things like that. And I think a lot of the times with this type of training, it just changes your perspective on things and putting yourself in someone's shoes, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, I think is kind of the root level a lot about gender-based violence.
Yeah, absolutely right. Like that piece about empathy. I remember that really well too, because I remember talking about the elevators as well, right? Like, and how like the experience of getting into an elevator. And it's funny because, you know, we're here at Grey Cup and there's obviously a lot of football players around. And now that I've gotten the chance to know quite a few of you guys, like it's a very different dynamic. But even catching myself like yesterday, you know, getting into the elevator and then, you know, 4 or 5 of the guys from the Saskatchewan Roughriders getting the elevator with me. And I'm like, oh, this is a, you know, interesting dynamic. And of course, I you know, in that moment, I felt safe because I generally know the kind of, you know, the perspective, like I know that these guys are good people and we've had a chance to get to know a lot of football players, but in a different situation, that would have been very different because it's very big. And like, you know, for you guys, both of you are quite tall. So it's like just those kind of moments and not even thinking about them, right? Or just like watching, you know, someone either like a woman or someone who's gender diverse kind of see that moment and like be like, oh, I'm not going to get into that space, right? But just like learning kind of that dynamic. So I remember that conversation really well. And I think we had really similar ones as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what we're trying to change, right? Is just making situations like that safe. And then with that comes, you know, women feeling safe in those situations.
Well said. Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely. So now you've both been through the training. and we've kind of talked about it, but like some of those, like, what were some of like those surprising moments for you? Or was there anything that like really kind of like, maybe changed your perspective that like really stuck with you, or anything kind of like memorable in that sense from the actual training itself?
For me, I think it was hearing the stories of, other people around Canada that we took the course with, and hearing, stories of things they had to go through, especially, some of the older women that, were in the workforce in the like 80s and 90s and early 2000s, and the things that they had to experience, which was eye-opening. And then also what was cool was just, a lot of us like kind of poured our hearts out and shared like, deep stories that you wouldn't really share with strangers. So after a couple of days, we were kind of just telling, backgrounds and things that were very personal to us, and sharing that with each other, which was, I didn't expect going in that would occur. And it was just really cool. It just made us, create this bond and be closer together.
Yeah, I think, our group was really interesting. A lot of them were my previous teammates. So like Grimes, Manny Arsenal was there. But then there's also guys that like, that I didn't really know, like Van Zyl was there. Brett was there. So there was a couple players, but even my previous teammates, we were open up conversations about stuff. And sometimes you just don't see those sides of players where like, hey, I consider that person a close friend, but we've never had a sit down conversation and these probing questions where you hear that side of people. And I think that was something I took away. It was like, hey, like obviously each one of us goes through so much experiences, and then talking about them in those open environments, as well as the Steelworker Union people that were there. There was a lot of similar experiences with different backgrounds. So it was pretty interesting to come across there and realize we're all very similar with similar experiences.
Yeah, and that goes kind of back to what you were saying before, and I was just thinking about like how it's interesting because it feels like it's very different, but kind of both a lot of steelwork members and the players are at the organizations or the workplaces are at a very similar point where there's a lot more women coming into those spaces, or gender diverse folks, right? So it's new for kind of both sides of this program, in that they're how do we make sure that women feel comfortable, and how do we change our workplaces to make sure that they feel safe in those environments? Yeah,
and I think I know we're talking about the training, but just to go off that point, like I remember I'd done one of the speeches, the elevating action speeches over on Vancouver Island. And, a lot of this work with gender-based violence, you give the speech and you walk away and you're just kind of like, I hope they took something. I hope that was effective. You don't know, but then hearing a lot of especially the males, but there obviously a lot of the females came up and said, thank you for doing the work. But hearing the men that come up and say like, I have a daughter, or like, hey, like, yeah, like I've been pushing for this and I didn't know what to do. And then just giving that additional education, I feel like, really gave a lot of motivation to keep doing that, because people were coming up saying like, hey, I enjoyed what you're doing here and I'm going to take this back to the site. So. Yeah. Amazing.
So amazing. We're going to bring in another guest, Max Rouyer from the BC Lions and also a player rep. Right. Thanks, Max, for joining us. You just had made an appearance. So how's your day going so far? How are you feeling?
So far, so good. Yeah. It's a good day. Good weather outside. Can't complain. And very happy to be here.
Awesome. Great. So we've just been talking about the kind of some of our experiences at the training and just some of those like kind of memorable moments. So if you want to just add, what have been some of like, you did the training the most recently back in March 2025. We were in Niagara Falls. So yeah, just what are some of your memories or experiences from the training, and what kind of stuck with you from it?
We did the training with the USW, and I feel that the best part was we being with them and having them sharing their stories, because they're so far from our realities in the locker room. Like obviously, they actually work with women a lot more than we do. And they face those problems a lot more than we do, and that was very nice. And then I think we made some great connection with them, and seeing them during this week at the Grey Cup is just always a good time. And they invite us everywhere they can. So yeah, those were probably the highlights.
Now, Zoey, should he also do it in French? After this, should we just repeat this in French for all the viewers that may or may not be francophone?
Well, I mean, that's like, it's really cool because now we have like a French player that's gone through the program, so we can do those like, presentations in French, right? White Ribbon is fully bilingual as well, right? Awesome. So I think that's something for our future for sure in this program is to be able to, reach the province of Quebec. I know you've been talking a lot with some of the USW leadership from Quebec as well. So this week,
Luc and Michelle, they're very excited about the partnership and having somebody that actually speaks French. And yes, we're coming for your job.
Amazing. Okay, so next what I want to do is just like a little activity just to get your kind of like raw reactions to some statements and just like what you think when you kind of hear these things, right? Similar to some of the things we've done in the training and talked about. It's like, now going through the training, like when you hear these things, what is your like reaction to these statements? So I'm just going to toss them out and then you guys can just react. So the first one is talking about gender equality makes you less tough.
I think that's the opposite. I think it actually takes somebody very strong and very mature to be able to address those subjects, especially around other men. I feel like this is something that most of the people are going to try to avoid. And if we can be leaders and then speak about it loudly and be listened, I think that's the way tougher.
Yeah, I think I unfortunately relate to that statement because when I first started doing this work, I knew it was necessary, but I was almost too worried about my image to a lot of the guys around the league. You know what I mean? Like, hey, like if I do this, will I look soft to the other guys across the league, right? But as I started working more and more, and I said, like to Max's point about being a leader is sometimes you have to do the things that, are not always easy, but that is the right thing to do. So I think standing up there, like all the leaders that come through the program, standing up there, giving the information, knowing the statistics and knowing that we can make a difference really empowers other people to do the same. And I hope with the work that we're doing and having players like Jake and Max, myself and all the other people that have went through this program, showing a lot of the superstars around the league, standing up and saying like, enough is enough, we need to do more, opens the doors for so many other, some of the rookies, some of the other people that are coming up and saying like, hey, Jake Ceresna's, standing up saying this is not okay. And I believe in that. I also want to do the same.
Absolutely. And just to go off, like you guys had made great points, but nothing can make you less tough, especially talking about hard things. And if anything, it makes you more tough to talk about stuff that, people don't want to talk about or bring attention to things that are actual issues that in my opinion, that is actual toughness. So that's good. These guys are tough guys right here.
All right, so the next one is then, what would you say to people who say gender-based violence is a woman's issue?
I think I've heard that said a lot, and I look back to someone that's very prominent in this field, Jason Katz, who says this has been a woman's issue for a long time. Women have been, doing the most in this field, but this isn't a woman's issue. This is a man's issue. Predominantly the statistics show us that men are the ones that are the violent ones doing violence on men or gender diverse people or females, right? So we need to stand with women, not against them, and say, you've done the most, but we need to hold your hand in the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. And it's a man's issue because men are the ones that are, like he said, are committing the violent acts towards women. So it's going to take strong men and other men to help, women on the issue. It's a collective thing that we can all stand behind and get together to end it and to bring awareness to it, make women feel safer, and then to end it ultimately. So it's 100% a man's issue.
I think it's everybody's problem, really. Mm-hmm. I think as much as men and women are impacted by that, I think with people knowing and not doing anything are as much of a problem. So having that kind of training and knowing the proper steps and how to bring people up with the issue, I think that's the main thing. It's good to know having the tools to be able to face that problem and then be able to use it and help other people to not do the same mistakes. Because as much as doing it is a problem, not doing anything and knowing it's happening is a problem. Mm-hmm. And I think for a long time that was the main thing. Oh, I'm not against it. I'm not against it. I'm all for it, but I'm not doing anything because I don't want to be part of the problem. I don't want to be involved. This situation doesn't touch me, but it actually touch everybody.
Absolutely. And being able to create spaces where, you know, men or women who are experiencing violence, gender-based violence, can have somewhere to go to or someone to talk to that is, you know, the opposite sex or the same sex, it doesn't matter. But somewhere they can go where they feel safe and their voice can be heard and what they're going through can be heard.
I think to Max's point, right, when we think about gender-based violence, our minds tend to go to that kind of the physical violence, right? That's always the first thing we think about. But when we're thinking about, like in the training, like the root causes, right, the stereotypes, the gendered expectations of both men and women, you know, we need to break that down at that level, right? And that really takes everyone. And it, you know, we all probably have been guilty of it at some point, right? And so we really need to think about what does it mean, right? And what is healthy masculinities and what does it mean to be a man, and who's putting those pressures on those, you know, especially young boys, right, to fit into what we call the man box, right? So it's really important to address those root causes as well as, you know, the impact as well. So, okay, the last one I have for you, a statement is, what would you say to locker rooms aren't the place for this topic?
I think, no, this is exactly the place. Especially like most of the guys that we've been around with, they're starting having kids and they're starting having little girls, and they're gonna face those problems. So if they know just even before the little girls are born how to address all those situations and how they can help their daughters, then that's exactly the place. And then they're gonna have little boys. Those little boys might end up having girlfriends. So it's always gonna be part of the problem. So no, locker rooms is the place.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talk about everything in the locker room. So it's absolutely the place where it should be talked about and you know, the information spread and what we could do to change spread and how it could, you know, make the world a better place. It's a huge issue, and it's something that, you know, even you never know what impact you can have on a guy or someone else in your locker room just by, you know, saying maybe one statement, and that could alter his life or change his life or, you know, make him more interested in gender-based violence or make him kind of, you know, maybe later that night or the next week, he was going to commit an act, and just you being there or saying something makes him rethink it or change his ways or change his opinions. You never know like, what impact you can have on somebody. So 100% needs to be in the locker room and discussed and you know, everyone collectively making the world better.
Yeah, I think you guys touched on that very well. I think it ultimately comes down to being a leader in the locker room and what kind of culture you want to create in the locker room. As us three trained in this and then set forth to go into our locker room and our lives and the people around us. You know, I think, you know, you kind of touched on it a lot earlier, is like, I think the stuff that you would see in a locker room is those little jokes, the homophobic language, the sexist remarks, those little things. And I think, you know, abuse takes place on a continuum. So if you allow these things to happen in a place like their locker room, and they know that's funny or they know that that's okay, then those things can escalate further and further and further. Whereas like if we're in a locker room and we're leaders and we say like, no, in our locker room, that's not acceptable. And we don't find that funny. And what that does is then younger players that see that know that, hey, this isn't okay. Is then as well as there's football locker rooms are becoming more diverse, like with training staff, management, having more diverse people in the organization. So ensuring that they feel safe at work too. An example of something like when you say this is not the place, locker rooms aren't the place. You know, an example happened where, you know, one of the boys in the locker room made a joke to a trainer that was a little sexist. I caught word of it. I told him, hey man, like you should go like apologize. And he goes, I told him why, and he did. And she's like, oh, it's no big deal. But what that does is that if other players see that, you know, it's not okay, and by apologizing and saying that like I didn't mean it like that, it also makes that individual feel safer that, you know, I'm not being highlighted or singled out with that joke. So I think locker rooms are a good place because that's where the, you know, guys hang out and be themselves, and ensuring that this is a safe place for everyone and the core values of the locker room are upheld in our respected locker rooms.
Absolutely. Amazing. So yeah, I'm gonna now like ask you guys like to maybe be a little vulnerable or dig a little deep, but like, you know, going through the program, what like changed for you personally, or, you know, what was that kind of individual personal impact, or how did you take it back into your everyday life or your own growth? Like, what was that experience like going through the training and then kind of coming out the other side? Because it's like, you know, we're almost like in a room for 4 days, like having all these chats. And then what does it feel like to walk out of there?
Yeah, just being, you know, kind of self-aware of some things that you might do that you don't even realize you do that could have an impact on you know, women or other people around you. And, you know, just being like, oh, wow, I didn't realize how that could come off, or how my approach could affect someone's mindset or make someone feel uncomfortable. And then just being a better voice too for, you know, the people around you, and maybe, you know, where you would just, you know, walk by and not say anything when you saw something a little off. Maybe you stop and say, make sure that everything's okay or someone feels safe. So that was it for me.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, just perspective changes on the small things. I think for the most part, like the big concepts were understood, but like a lot of the little things throughout the training where it's just like a perspective change on language, or, you know, how being a big guy, how I think, you know, I'm bubbly and smiling someone, but how that can be received from other people because of their experiences or things that I'm not aware of. So I was just, you know, it was a good thing, and I think you touched on the language that we use too. It's always good reminders and things that we need to look back on and keep checking up. I think the other thing is too is like just having those things like, hey, we're gonna make mistakes. You know, you might slip up and stuff, but making sure we're going in the right direction too.
Mostly other people's perspective on the problems, because sometimes people are gonna say stuff and then you're gonna call them out and they're gonna be like, oh, it's not a big deal. But yeah, maybe it's not a big deal for you. Maybe sometimes I say stuff and it's not a big deal for me. But having the thought process and the self-consciousness and being like, okay, let me process that in my head. Does that make sense? Can I say that? I think that was kind of mind-opening regarding that.
So now for you guys, what's next with this? And Andrew, you've had the opportunity to go and do one of the presentations as a spokesperson. Yeah. Maybe you can actually just share with us what that was like and how that went for you on that front.
Yeah, so it was an interesting experience because just as Elevating Action's presentation, we hadn't done it, right? I was part of the first training, which I thought was a great success. But I think it's one thing to be in a closed group, everyone's open to it, we signed up for it, we want to be there, and then taking that information, condensing 4 days into 2-hour presentation, and then going into a workforce and giving this presentation. You know, you never know what you're getting into. Luckily, I've done this work in high schools, which is, you know, sometimes probably the most cutthroat kind of people, you know, teenagers doing gender-based violence work. So, but we went to Vancouver Island to speak to the USW workers at their professional day. And we had 2 hours right after lunch, and we spoke. We were the last group of the day speaking. And, you know, at the start, it was good. And I think the biggest thing is like, it was very conversational, which is different than what I've done, which is more just like public speaking. You have your talking points, where this was really, you know, conversational, asking questions, icebreakers, making down barriers. People, and then what I found is people started, you know, and I think what I found out is like being vulnerable to the group we're speaking to and saying like, hey, you see me on TV, but I'm also just a human on the side. And a lot of those fans don't see that side of us. So like when we were in front of these people and I was telling them stories and stuff like that and struggles that I've been through, it allowed them to feel like they can. So we started hearing stories from them about their experiences. And these are people that, you know, I have no idea who they are, what experiences they go to in their respected field. I thought it was a great success, walked away. And I already mentioned, you know, a lot of people were coming up to me after and saying what valuable information this was and how they're going to take this forward and thank us for what we're doing. So I think it was a great success, and I think to your point, what's next? You know, for me, after Grey Cup week, I'm traveling to Saskatoon to do another elevating action. That will be my second time doing it. But hearing the feedback, just in general, from all the guys that have done it, it's been a great success. Everyone's had a fantastic time, and I think it's just going to keep growing when people start seeing the work we're doing and the feedback keeps coming back. I think this is going to be a very successful initiative and partnership that the CFLPA, White Ribbon, and USW have established, and I'm proud to be doing it.
Amazing. Max, what are you hoping to
Can you get a call? Can I get a call? I'm hoping to do one.
Yeah.
Just for the experience of it. And I know we've been talking with the USW guys from Quebec that having like a French one and having a French CFLPA guys that could show up and do it with them, that would be very helpful. So we'll see how it goes during the winter.
Yeah.
But the way the training was and the way Andrew's been talking about his experience, I think I would probably be the same. Like just going out there and actually talking to the people, that's gonna be the main thing.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the really smart and one of the smart things we've done is to kind of diversify who does it. You know, for people that aren't aware, I think there's representation from every team now. I mean, I think I don't want.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't want to. But I think we're pretty close, which is awesome. And I know in our locker room now, Max is doing it, so he's bilingual, so he can speak French and English. I think that opens the door to get to Quebec, because that's I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that and going into a French environment, even if they do speak English.
I wouldn't feel comfortable for you.
But I think I guess let me rephrase that. I think you would do such a better job in that environment than I could. So I think that's something that I think is really effective for us, is getting people that are all across the whole country. So that when they go into their, someone that's on the East Coast, for example, they are more familiar with the culture and society there and issues that might pertain more to East Coast, or vice versa. Me living in British Columbia for the last 8 years, I'm aware of some of the news and stuff like that might go on Vancouver Island or in the Lower Mainland. And then someone like Max that lives in Montreal in the off season, is aware of maybe some cultural differences there, and how to present that.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be easier to connect to the audience.
Yeah.
When you get the guy that comes from the place.
Yeah.
Than somebody that has no idea what's going on, and you just travel that guy across Canada.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that's a great point.
Yeah, I think, and you've kind of touched on it even in presenting, in that, you guys really are role models, not just for kids, but for adults and for a lot of these, steelworkers. And we always say, when you think about, who are the people who hold season tickets to the CFL, right? We know that there's probably a lot of union workers that are that group, right? And, I'm from Hamilton, and I go to the Ticats games, and, there's a reason everyone in the crowd wears their hard hats, right? And it's, it's that culture that's really a part of that too. And I think to that point, if we're at a steel plant in Hamilton, who better to be up there than someone from, who
Chris
plays
Van
for that
Zyl,
team, or Chris Van Zyl.
That played there forever, right?
Yeah, absolutely, right? And it just has that impact. But I think it's so cool and so important that that ability to be that leader and that role model for those union workers and for those members, and what a cool experience for them as well, to see people that they idolize and look up to be that vulnerable with them as well.
Yeah, and I think to tell a quick story, when I was doing the presentation, we open it up for questions after, and I think that's when a lot of valuable information is learned, because people that, we can't address everything during the presentations like we do in the training for 4 days, 10-hour days. It's we get a lot done there. But in the presentation, we have to condense it so much. So questions are a lot of the times where we can address things that people are, wondering about or situations. But what we find is sometimes it's hard to get those questions going. But one thing they'll do is like, hey, I say, does anyone have a football question for me? And then someone will say like, yeah, what's Nathan work like? Or hey, you guys got hired, new coaching staff. How's Buck Pierce? Like, and then that breaks down some barriers where we get the conversation going. Then someone brings in a real question about, like, hey, I experienced this in this situation. Do you have a recommendation on how I can be better next time? Boom, great. And then that gets going. People are, answering. They're now talking to themselves and putting up their hands and having this conversation. So, yeah, I think to your point, I think it's really great to have these players in their Hamilton to answer those things, right?
So, what would you say then to maybe some of like the other player reps or just players around the league who are maybe interested? What would you say to them if they were interested in getting involved in this program, as well as the USW members if they're interested? Like, what's your kind of final recommendation to them?
Just do it. Don't overthink it. Like, I think you're gonna gain so much from it personally, and for your group, the people that you work around with, can only be beneficial. So just go for it. Do it. If you have the time to do it, do it. It's worth it, and it's a great 3-4 days that you get to hang with people that probably you wouldn't hang on. I wouldn't hang with the USW guys. I would have never have. And now every time I see them, it's like we're always together, and we keep talking about this program, and we keep talking about how we can make things better, and that also like make the CFLPA and the USW connection way stronger, because then we can talk about how we can help each other in that situation, and that was all about elevating actions.
Yeah, I think Max likes hanging around the USW guys more than he hangs around us. I walked. I was like, "What are you up to?" And he texted back like, "No, just hanging with the USW guys." And I'm like, "Where's it? Like, what are you? Why aren't you hanging out with me, man?" He's like, "I see you all the time." Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I hear with programs in general is that people aren't comfortable with the public speaking aspect. I think that's like a big hinder for it, but once you kind of realize that it's not as much public speaking as much as it is just having conversations about things that you're passionate about and that are a big problem that affect everyone, right? Like one of the biggest things I say about gender-based violence is it's 1 in 3 people are affected, women are affected by it. And I challenge people to say, like, think about 3 women in your life, and if one of them is affected, right? And we can all think about 3 women. So there's definitely a passion for doing something. Now it's just getting the comfortability to get in front of people and share these experiences. To Max's point, even just doing the training and getting that done, I think you're going to hang around some unbelievable people, players that you normally aren't with, and then the other one too is you're going to meet some great people from the USW and White Ribbon. And like every time, like to Max's point, every time Grey Cup week or AGM and we hang around them, they bring so much energy to us too, like asking questions or just hanging around and having a good time. It's always a fun experience just on the more personal side of doing the training and doing these programs. You meet some awesome people that can open doors for, we've had conversations about life after football with a lot of these people. Like, oh, they're so well connected. They're like, oh yeah, I know so and so here. So there's so much value outside of just doing this work. So I think it's a great program, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Jake spoke to it earlier too, in that like it's you do this training like 3-4 days like together for long hours, but that brings you so close, right? And you're going through some of these conversations and getting really vulnerable or deep with what at first feel like strangers, but you walk away with this like new group of friends basically, right? Yeah. And it's such a cool experience, and that's been a really cool experience for myself as well to like be able now to go to the games and maybe wave to players if they wave back. But yeah, it's just been such a cool experience, I think, for everyone. And it's been so fun. And, this can be hard to talk about, and these topics can be hard to talk about. But in the same vein, like, we have those hard conversations, and then we also have a lot of laughs and we have a lot of good times as well. And we can find that balance. And so the program becomes so powerful and so meaningful in those moments as well.
Yeah. And the main thing with the program is you don't have to do any public speaking after that. So you can just take the program, and that can be very useful for yourself.
Yeah.
It's better if you can go and spread it. But there's some people that could come in and just do the program, and then they're gonna be that person in their locker room or in front of their workers. They don't have to go in public speak. They don't have to get in front of a group of people and actually do a presentation. So that's something that you gotta know, that you can if you want, but you don't have to. You can still come back to your locker room and go talk one-on-one with a guy, because you know you get the proper tools to help people in the locker room.
Yeah, or from the USW side, go back to the job site.
Absolutely.
And make a huge difference in their workforce as well. So I completely agree. And that might, from the USW side too, that might open doors for them to keep moving up, or when they change job sites, they're affecting so many lives as well. Mm-hmm. We speak mostly from our experience in the locker room, but I know hearing their feedback and how comfortable they feel like they can make a difference, it's great.
Well, thank you both, and thanks to Jake as well, who had to step out. It's a busy week for you guys, I know, so thank you for taking the time.
Schedule's full,
absolutely.
Well, I'll pencil you in.
Exactly.
Sorry, I gotta leave it too.
No, it was great. It's great to hear about it. I think it's nice to think back to those times and those memories and those, those time we spent in the programs. I know, every time we come to Grey Cup or AGM or we're around, and we can just have those laughs again and think about that. It's such a cool experience. So definitely encourage more people to look into it and to think, about the next time registrations come out, to definitely, fill that in and take a shot and join us, because it's such important work, and it's such a good time as well. And we need more people to do it. Right. Absolutely.
And just real quick, to give you your flowers, you're the one that's, doing all this work all the time. And while we're the ones in the front of the people and get all the credit for, being the ones that do this work, you're the one that does it every single day and training us and all this. And so just for anyone watching and going forward, you're the real superstar and hero. So we appreciate it.
And we're here today. So that's how much impact you had on us. When you asked us about doing that, there was no hesitation. We'll be there. We'll do it because we know it's the right thing, and we know we want to do it too.
Yeah. So we appreciate you too.
Thanks, guys. You put me on the spot.
Yeah, you've been putting us on the spot this whole time. So
amazing.
Yeah, push it back a little bit.
Well, thank you both for joining us, and I'm gonna end us there. But it's been just so meaningful, and this has been so great, and it's always great to spend time with you guys and have these conversations.
Yeah, thank you. Go Lions.
I have to be neutral, I think. Thank you to our amazing guests and to everyone tuning in. Remember, preventing gender-based violence isn't just one person's job. It's about teamwork, leadership, and respect on the field, at work, and in our communities. You can learn more about the Elevating Action Partnership by talking to your USW Education Coordinator, your CFLPA player rep, or by contacting White Ribbon at info@whiteribbon.ca. To learn more about our work at White Ribbon, or if you're interested in exploring collaboration, joint programming, training, or partnerships, please visit whiteribbon.ca. Until next time, keep showing up, speaking up, and lifting each other up. Thanks for listening.